Hi everyone, my name is Taryn with Quest, and today's presentation is the Get Current series, Decustomizing PeopleSoft with SpearMC, and today's speaker is Cameron McClurg with SpearMC. So a few housekeeping notes to go over before we get started. All attendee lines are in mute and will stay in mute throughout this session. If you do have any questions, please feel free to put those into the question drop-down box. We will answer those at the end of today's session. And this is being recorded and it will be on the Quest content library, and everyone will receive an email when that is available. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Cameron.
All right, thanks, Taryn. Good to be with you all today. I appreciate you taking a little bit of time and listening into to this presentation. I do have my webcam on right now just to say hi, but I'm actually going to stop that because nobody really wants to see me. They want to see the presentation. So I'm just saying hi. I put on a nice shirt for you all today, and now I'm going to turn off my webcam. So I will now be focusing in on the PowerPoint. So hopefully you all can see the PowerPoint. All right. Okay. So my name is Cameron McClurg, and this is again me. I am a managing director at SpearMC, located in the Seattle office. I have only come to SpearMC about 2.5 years ago. Prior to that, I was in many of your shoes. I was director of financial systems at an organization in Seattle, and prior to that, I've been a business analyst and doing all sorts of work both in PeopleSoft and Hyperion around the Seattle area, as well as a few organizations. I actually worked for PeopleSoft at one point, doing work there. But that's basically my background. So I really understand sort of the client perspective and kind of what you all go through in kind of managing your application, trying to determine a roadmap, trying to determine what to customize, when not to customize, all of that. So I've been able to blend my background from being within an organization to now my approach with SpearMC. So that's a little bit about me. I've been doing PeopleSoft and Hyperion or cloud infrastructure now for many years. Not PeopleSoft since late 90s and Hyperion since about 2010. Oracle cloud infrastructure for the last several years. So many of you know SpearMC already. We are, I should say, a former Oracle Platinum partner, because that program is actually no longer running, the Platinum partner. But we do have specializations, which is where things are moving towards. We do have specializations in PeopleSoft, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, Oracle Cloud EPM, Hyperion, Infrastructure as a Service. But really our main bread and butter is PeopleSoft, whether that's PeopleSoft managed services, implementations, trainings, hosting on OCI. PeopleSoft is really our thing. And while we've, many of our peer partner organizations have started to do lots of other work in lots of other applications, we kind of doubled down with PeopleSoft. We felt like we have a very strong customer base. There's still a lot of really great things coming with PeopleSoft. Oracle is really invested in PeopleSoft, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. And so we really just kind of double down and continue to focus on PeopleSoft. So it's all things, whether it's financials, HCM, campus, and then with respect to all aspects. We're a reseller of the application, and we're involved in a little bit of everything in PeopleSoft. We are across the country, so we have good geographic representation around the country. We actually have starting to do a lot of work in Canada as well, and we've got some work in other countries as well. So we've got people across the country, and back in the pre-COVID days, this was more important perhaps than it is now, that everybody's working remotely. But we are, as you can see, have been steadily expanding our operations since the mid 2000s, when we were first started in San Francisco. So all right, so today let's talk about decustomization. First, before we do that, I want to talk about the current state of PeopleSoft, because it really provides context for the conversation about decustomization and the way Oracle is looking at PeopleSoft. So we'll talk a little bit about that, a little bit about the COVID-19 response that they've had. We'll look at the evolution of development and how we kind of got to where we are now. And then we'll talk through kind of the decustomization methodology or how we go about doing our analysis. And then we'll look at use cases and some success stories. So that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today. All right, so let's start with the current state of PeopleSoft. So as you may be aware, Oracle has been rolling out some very targeted features and support for COVID-19. You can see a few of those things here. I will point out that there were several items that were planned to be de-supported in 2020, specifically around Classic and Classic Plus pages that were replaced with Fluid pages. That is all being extended an extra year to allow people some extra time to get off of those Classic Plus pages. So that's great. On the HCM side, there's a lot of updates that they've been bringing in terms of dealing very rapidly with the changes with respect to compensation, the ability to show you how to create, let's say, questionnaires to do things like return to work and surveying your employees. So they have some great options there with how to do that. On the financial side, they've focused a lot on dealing with some of the personal protective equipment. So ability to track that in inventory and on the supply chain side, as well as some new features and some sort of how-tos with respect to AP and AR to deal with some of the changes and some of the more pressing issues that people or organizations are now dealing with. Another one really important, the 856 patch cycle. So normally that would have ended later this year. With 858 coming out, they typically end their support for tools releases within. So 2 cycles ago would have ended support, and that's been extended 6 months. So this will go all the way through April of next year. So if you're on 856, you do have more time. We would love to talk to you about moving from 856 to 858. We think there's some significant value that within the 858 tool set. But you do have an extension on that, and that's, again, providing a little bit more flexibility and leeway in your timeline. All of this can be found on Oracle's COVID-19 page, and we'll get the deck out to people in this, and you can get the links here to take a look at all the things that the Oracle PeopleSoft team is doing with COVID-19. Okay, so let's focus in on PeopleSoft and how Oracle looks at PeopleSoft. So it's crazy to me, but we still have this conversation with a lot of folks who think that hey, PeopleSoft's going away, we shouldn't invest in PeopleSoft, etc. It's simply not true. There is still a lot of investment in PeopleSoft. You can see not only are they articulating their support policy, and by the way, I always point out on this, they don't articulate a support policy and a long-term support policy for their SaaS applications. So while people think that there's this sort of this idea that PeopleSoft's going away, the truth is that they continue to invest in the product and they continue to roll out another 10 years of support. In fact, earlier this year, they already announced that that support is going through 2031. This slide is already a little bit old, but they've already announced that their support is through 2031. So what are they doing in terms of investment? Let's take a look at that. So this is, again, a bit of an older slide, but it still articulates well where they focus their time. So with respect to how they look at how they're going to invest in this product, if you think about PeopleSoft, it's been around for a long time, so it's very feature rich, a lot of features, a lot of functionality. So what do you do with that? How do you continue to evolve and innovate within an application? So they've got kind of 2 areas they think about. They think about strategic investments, so things like simplification and modernization, analytics, moving towards cloud and emerging technologies, and then the framework for eliminating customizations, and that's what we're going to focus on today. They also have this other side, which is this customer-driven enhancements. They've got a lot of new ideas coming at them. You can see here that, and this is actually an older slide, but 175 features that have come from the idea spaces on my Oracle support. So they're listening, they're actually soliciting feedback and ideas through these idea spaces. And anytime you hear the product people from PeopleSoft speak, they'll highlight the new features, and they'll talk about the features that come from idea space, coming from their customers. So this is really where they're focusing their time, because that's what you do when you have a very mature product. So let's talk about how those features are released. And most of you at this point, I would hope, understand the concept of PUM, PeopleSoft Update Manager. For those of you who don't fully understand this concept, what PUM is the new methodology, and I shouldn't even say new, it's a methodology that's been on for quite some time now in the latest and the last image, or last version, which is called 9.2, this idea of continual improvement. They bring 4 images per year that include a mixture of bug fixes to prior issues. They bring these out. In addition to that, there's of course ad hoc patching, so things that are more pressing, or they have regulatory updates. So they have 6 tax updates a year in HCM. They have an annual 1099 update for tax updates on the financial side. So in addition to the scheduled updates, they can come out with these ad hoc patching. All of it comes through PeopleSoft Update Manager. So I like this slide. This is a graphic of how PeopleSoft Update Manager works. And we're not going to get real technical here, but I will just point out that the ability to then review and download the features and the images coming from PeopleSoft, you bring that into your environment, you create this change package, and then you apply it to your instances. Very important to point out that you are in control of PeopleSoft. You will always be in control of PeopleSoft. While many SaaS applications are doing continuous improvement as well, you're not in control of those features, and so that can be disruptive to changing things. And so a lot of PeopleSoft customers like to control their environments, but you get the best of both worlds because you still get to take in these image updates. But when you have these latest features coming in from Oracle through this PUM model, I want to highlight this 6th sort of step here, and that's to if you've modified your application, customized your application, you must re-customize. You bring in the image from Oracle, but then you have to re-customize the application. So the developers will take a look at the customizations. They'll reapply those customizations into the latest image. So you first start with the PeopleSoft Oracle image, you reapply your customizations, and then you apply it into your applications, into let's say a development environment. You move it into a stage or test, and then you got to test, fix, retest. And that process of reapplying customizations, fixing the things that it broke, maybe modifying your customizations because it's now in conflict with delivered functionality, this really leads to about 90% of the project effort. And a lot of times what happens with organizations is they see this and they go through this process, and quite frankly, it's so painful to reapply your customizations that they say, well, okay, we're now current, but we're not going to the next image in 3 months. We're not even gonna do it in 6 months. We're gonna maybe do it every year. And sometimes you just say, we're not doing it again for a while. And that's what happens to a lot of organizations because this process of reapplying customizations can be somewhat painful. So this is the #1 reason why organizations don't and can't stay current. And we think that there's obviously a better way. So, I want to just briefly talk about how do we get here, or alternatively said, a brief history of the PeopleSoft development. So, the PeopleSoft was released, way back there in 1989. It was expanded with financials, distribution, manufacturing through the 90s. But the underlying theme here was that there was proprietary software, this PeopleTools software that was built as open source. And by doing that, it was all open. You could see the application. You could You could modify the application. It was platform independent. You could run it on whatever database you wanted. So this was fantastic. And people saw this and was able to go into this app designer tool that you can see. You can see here what app designer looks like. You can look at the underlying pages. So here you can see how you can look at a kind of a design framework here. You can look at a page, and this is actually the security page. And if you look from the front end, it looks like a page in PeopleSoft. But in the back end, you can see the whole page. You can see the fields. You can move those fields around. You can add extra fields. And so you're looking at this and you go, wait, hold on. We can see the code behind any page in PeopleSoft. And the question, of course, that leads to is, does that mean we can change it? And of course, the answer is yes. And so really, you know, this strength that PeopleSoft has delivered, that people fell in love with through the 90s and the 2000s, it can become a weakness in this new mode of continual improvement with your application, your feature functionality. So really, App Designer is fantastic and people love it, but you need to understand how to control it and how to use it wisely. And it can lead to a lot of customizations. All right, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we get to a point where we say, okay, so we've done a lot of customizations and it's preventing us from moving forward with more frequent updates to our application. So how do we take a look at that and kind of you know, take a step back from that and maybe readdress it? So this is kind of a standard methodology that we use to walk through how you look at decustomization. And I'm going to talk through kind of each one of these things. So the first thing that is always important is to really understand your customizations. And for a lot of organizations, they don't actually know what they've customized, and that's not actually that uncommon. Many organizations do have existing documentation. Sometimes it's fairly good, maybe it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Sometimes you don't. And so what we can do is we can come in with compare reports. We can do actually automated transactions through PeopleSoft test framework, and that can actually, by running delivered scripts, we can actually find customizations because the script will actually break. So we can actually find these customizations, and you guys can do this as well. You can kind of document and inventory your customizations. That's really the first step. The second step is to really take a look at your requirements and really reconcile those customizations to your requirements. You can leverage existing documentation. You can, you know, talk to your stakeholders, try to find an owner for that customization or that requirement. But really, the very important question to ask is this requirement that you want to modify and change the functionality of PeopleSoft, does it align with our strategic objectives? And if the answer is no, well, then there might be other questions you can ask that can still justify that modification. But really, it's a very important question to ask, because if somebody says, well, I just don't like the color here, well, how does that align with your organizational strategic objectives? Well, maybe you have a branding initiative, and maybe that's very important. I don't know. But ask those questions and be aggressive and trying to say, you know what, this isn't going to be in our roadmap to continue to support maybe one-off requests. So that sort of, once you get past that sort of gate of saying, okay, here's our requirements for our customizations, the next step is to say, you know, is this requirement still needed? Can we eliminate it, right? If it is still required, can we match it up with delivered functionality? In other words, Oracle, like we talked about, is delivered many features. And maybe you're on an older image and you can take a look at some of the features that have come in the more recent images, and you can move to that. By simply moving forward, you can decustomize by simply moving forward in a more recent image, and you can just turn on the functionality. And I've got some things I'll show you later on that. So there's lots of features, thousands of features delivered. There's frameworks that allow you to configure those features to really suit your needs. There's industry-specific solutions, and, you know, like I said, these new features come every 4 months. Okay, but let's say, okay, requirements can't be delivered feature, and so the next question is, can you use one of these delivered configurable tool sets or configurable enhancements? And that's what we're going to focus on today. Can we use one of those to really modify the experience with the application? And that's what we'll focus a lot on. By doing that, by using those configurable enhancements, you can eliminate the customization. The next step is, can we can the requirement be met with isolated code? And if it can, we can isolate it through using some of these bolt-on features, and I'm going to show you those today as well. And then if not, if we still can't do that, then we really do need to build customizations. Then that just increases your technical debt. It's not bad or good. It just, you have to know that it's going to increase your technical debt and it will cost you then when it comes time to actually do the updates. Okay. All right, so let's take a look, let's dive into these customization use cases. So the first use case for customization is my organization has specific terminology. When we come to these pages, we want to default values, we want to make certain fields required, we want to hide other fields, we want to do data masking. In the old version, prior to this new page and field configurator, which is what we're going to talk about, you would do field relabels, you would go in through the app designer tool and you'd change things around, you'd maybe add people code to default values, you make changes to modifications to the pages, or at the end of the day, you just kind of create restrictions within security. This segment of people can't see this page because there's stuff on here. Some of the stuff is we could show to people, but some of it we can't, so we have to just restrict the whole page and people just can't get access to it. Now we have this great tool called Page and Field Configurator and Data Privacy Framework that will now allow us this really flexible way of actually doing these specific things. So let me show you. So here we've got a page that is a delivered page, and you'll see these fields here on the left called System Source and Activity Owner. And in my organization, Activity Owner doesn't mean anything. It's really called Responsible Party. And really with System Source, yes, there's a bunch of system sources, but 9 times out of 10, it's always going to be a specific value. So we want to default that. Your Page and Field Configurator, we can turn that into a default value like this, PPC, and we can change that activity owner to responsible party. And so this will show up on a page, and I'm going to show you how we can restrict and show who's going to see it that way versus who could see it a different way. The bottom line here is we can modify this experience, and this requires no customizations, complete configuration. And by doing this, the next time we bring an image update, let's say they've made a change to this page and maybe they've moved activity owner down and insert a new field, no problem. That comes through that image update, no problem. We don't have to customize this to call it responsible party. It will just automatically come through. In this example, say we don't want to show people who the manager ID and the manager name is of a department, but we want to allow people to see a list of departments and the descriptions of those departments. By using data masking, I can simply turn that on and say, I don't want to show these two fields. So this is fantastic because we can now use a delivered page instead of saying, okay, now I got to create a report and output, a list of departments and descriptions to people. Now all I got to do is just give them access to this page, but we just restrict things that we don't want people to see. I can actually hide this field too if I wanted to do it that way. That's another option, is just to hide the field all through this Page and Field Configurator. So the question is, but what about the people that need to see the manager ID? No problem. Well, that's the whole point of when you do this Page and Field configuration, you have a whole included functionality and model that allows you to say certain people excluded from this. So you could say, okay, well, everybody's going to be, sort of have this defaulting or masking, except for, let's say, an accounting group that needs to manage this aspect of this page. Or you can go the other way and say everybody doesn't see it except for certain people. So you get to do it either way, and it can be by individuals, like you can see here, or you can do it by a role. And so everybody in a specific role, which is a little bit more sustainable and scalable. So very feature rich to be able to modify the experience of a specific page. And I think you can all think of pages that you know about in PeopleSoft in a specific module that have a million fields on that page, and you don't use all of them. Very easy now to use Page and Field Configurator to remove those and hide those fields. I didn't show that example, but that's another way and very easy to do in Page and Field Configurator. Okay, next use case. Oh, and by the way, I'll just point out one more thing. On this, here you can see the data masking. This doesn't actually mask it in queries and in the database, okay? So if you want to go to that next step because you have, let's say, sensitive information, whether it's personal information, whatever, you can use a data privacy framework, and it actually is more comprehensive, where it not only masks it on the pages, but also through reports and queries. So that's a data privacy framework. It's another level in comprehensiveness around this privacy framework situation. Okay, next example. We have specific data entry needs. Okay, in the old day, you make a change to a page that would require perhaps another underlying record change. Maybe you have to add new pages into a component. And all of that's still available, but now you have new features. Starting really quite a long time ago, PeopleSoft has delivered user-defined fields that are within each of the modules, because it knows that you need extra fields, whether it's in a chart fields that you add, or extra fields in whatever record. You can now define specific fields and use them in a specific way as part of your transaction. And then by using Page and Field Configurator, you can change the label from user-defined 1 to whatever that name of that field is for your organization. Again, completely delivered functionality, no customization needed. The other ones that we're going to show, and I'm going to show you these other ones, is activity guides, forms and approval, and drop zones. And this is the way you deal with data entry needs. So the first one I'll show you is kind of the activity guide. This is actually a delivered feature that they've brought, which is called the AP payment request. In the old days, and in fact, many of your organizations probably still do this, you have an Excel spreadsheet or some kind of form that people can request for a payment. So they fill out some paperwork, they submit it into AP, and then AP then needs to take that. They have to figure out a couple things. They have to figure out, is this approved? So can I go ahead and cut this check? I got to data enter it back into PeopleSoft. But with this payment request, it's an activity guide that takes a more complex transaction that requires things like some referential information, some invoice numbers, some amounts, some text to describe what this is about. You have to apply a supplier. You have to add some more invoice details. You got to submit it through approval. So that's a fairly complex transaction. If you think about an AP, if anybody's ever seen the AP voucher page, it's quite comprehensive. There's tons of fields on that page. You would never ask an end user to go fill out the voucher page. But this is a very simple page, and anybody can look at this and say, okay, well, I can put some information in here. You can also do things like defaulting if there's fields like business unit that people don't know. You can do things like that, and so you can leverage Page and Field Configurator and some of the things that we'll talk about later, called event mapping, and do that on this. But this whole concept of these train stops is an activity guide. So while PeopleSoft delivers these transactions to you, you can also build your own. You can build your own activity guides. You can take a complex transaction and you can build a step-by-step process to build that complex transaction and help people enter that. And by doing it in the system, you get to leverage all of that validation. So they can't put it in without putting a proper department. It doesn't even come to an AP group until it's actually submitted and approved by, let's say, a department owner. So you really push that work back to where it should be. And when it then comes to the group that actually has to take action on it, which is actually cut a check in this example, it's already pre-approved. It's already pre-validated, and so it's really a quite nice feature. It's kind of a step-by-step. This is looks like any PeopleSoft page where you have something where you can put a description. Here in this case, it's a tuition reimbursement, where I've got toggle buttons, yes, no. I have terms. I've got dates, fields. I've got a department. I've got an amount, and I can submit this in for approval. I can even do an add attachment. Very easy to do. So the form and approval framework is just a sort of a blank slate for you to build a form and to tie it to an approval process. And the very last step is then to tie it to a component interface to actually drop this data right into an actual transaction in PeopleSoft. So maybe this tuition reimbursement then would eventually lead to some kind of payment out to a student or something of that nature. So all of this is done and then can be mapped to a component interface. Very nice feature here and ability to really create your own pages. Again, totally delivered. Now, if you want to do some fancy things with this, like event mapping or things like that, we'll talk about that later. That does require a little app designer work. Now, but that's not a customization, right? You can think about it as a bolt-on. It doesn't actually create technical debt for the future. All right, drop zones. So drop zones are really fantastic. They've been starting to deliver these across the board in a lot of different places. And you can now see that you can, within an existing framework of a transaction, you can then drop in extra fields. In the old days, this was called a subpage, but these subpages are now fully supported in the sense that there's already a place for you to put your subpage, okay? And so the way this works is that here we look at the expense report entry page, and they've got 4 different spots for you to drop your own custom subpage. So by building that custom subpage, that is something you would do in App Designer, and you would need to maintain that, but that's a full-on bolt-on. It's completely isolated from the rest of the delivered code. By linking that in here to the configured, in this configurable drop zone area, you can now bring in and completely change the look and feel of that page by adding additional data elements without actually touching that page, without actually customizing that page. And that's the whole idea of drop zones. Prior to the latest releases in financials, and HCM, this was all done for just the fluid pages. But you can see here that all these drop zones are being delivered within the most recent images. Here's a most up-to-date view of how many drop zones are now available by module. Here's HCM, we've got 233 different drop zones across these different modules. I've got a link there to, you can actually see exactly what pages those are on. And then financials, we've got 252 that have been delivered, and you can see in the most recent images, 36 and 37, they're now delivering these drop zones for classic pages. And I think that's probably acknowledgement that some of these classic plus pages are probably going to be here for a while. So they decided to go ahead and add drop zones to some of those classic plus pages. So again, so just some referential information for you to go check that out if you'd like some more information. All right, moving along. All right, custom portals, menus, workflow. Old days, bring back the breadcrumbs. How many of you still have breadcrumbs? How many still love your breadcrumbs? Well, I get it. I've been using PeopleSoft since the late 90s. I totally understand the breadcrumbs. But there are some new features that make that less important. I'll show you those. Favorites, very important. When you have to have this very complex menu system that you have to get through, and oftentimes you have to click about 3 or 4 times to get down to an area, you probably want to create a favorite so you don't have to click through that. That's fine, and that's kind of the old way. The new way, you can use WorkCenters, nav collections, and unified navigation to deal with some of this. So let me kind of walk you through some of this. So WorkCenters, not new. This has been out there forever. We still find them to be fairly underutilized. And the whole idea of the WorkCenter is that it allows you to more or less automate a business process. So for example, if I'm in the old way, my job is to process or to deal with invoices that are not finalized. I might go and navigate through the menu or go to a favorite, go into where my invoices are and have maybe a search that I would look for invoices that are not finalized. And then I would find, after about 4 or 5 clicks, I'd get into it and I'd find out that, oh, no invoices, I don't need to process any invoices today. Well, in the WorkCenter, this presents it to you so that you don't have to click through and find out if you have work to do. I can come in here as a billing specialist, and I can see that I've got 28 invoices that I need to finalize. I can see 3 consolidated invoices that I need to work on, and then perhaps some other installment invoices or recurring invoices. You'll see in the other ones, the grayed out ones, invoices pending my approval or invoices not submitted, nothing, no work to do. I don't need to go click on that to find out if there's something to do. So really great way to do that. The other thing with and so you can see here that, only take action when action is needed. The other thing that PeopleSoft is doing is they're delivering continual enhancements to these WorkCenters. Here you can see a whole bunch of related actions. We'll talk about related actions in a second. You can see specific feature-rich functions that exist now within the WorkCenter. In this case, I want to click on a few of these, all for one of my customers, and I want to actually create an email notification to that customer that we do have a few invoices outstanding for this customer. Navigation collections. So navigation collections are a fantastic way for you to group things that normally would be distributed all over the place on your menu. So things like setup, things like here we have, job data, headcount data, reports, all of that can be grouped now within a navigation collection. So when I come in to PeopleSoft in a fluid model, if I got the tiles, I can click on a button called HR Administration, and I pretty much have everything I need within HR Administration, whether it's job, headcount, labor, HR configuration, data line, et cetera. All of that can be in my navigation collection. These are delivered by PeopleSoft, but they're very easily to be modified. You can configure and modify those, no problem. You can add more things in here. And by doing this, our customers who are using navigation collections don't talk to me about breadcrumbs, and they don't talk to me about the menu. It's just no longer relevant, because all they got to do is they got to click on this HR administration, or they click on their tile, whether it's AP or GL or whatever. They go into that area and they got everything that they need to do in that area. And so it's really, there's been a big shift here that people are okay with this. They work with this and they actually like it. Unified navigation brings together in a federated model multiple different applications. A lot of people are always surprised when they don't know that PeopleSoft Financials and HCM aren't on the same actual instance and database. But with unified navigation, which by the way is fully supported in your licensing model, you don't have to do another license for unified navigation like you did with Integration Hub. Unified navigation brings these together, both financials and HCM, or multiple, I should say, any of your pillars within PeopleSoft on the unified navigation model. And here you can see an example of how I've got financials tiles and HCM tiles on the same exact home page. And so if you think about things like employee self-service, manager self-service, it really does bring things together in a way that can be a much better experience for your users, where they don't have to log into multiple databases to do things that all really should be in one place. So very easy to do that. All right, moving along. So movement of data in or out of PeopleSoft. So in the old days, again, customizations to SQRs or custom SQRs, customizations to app engines, customer specific, SQRs. New model. You don't need to do all those customizations. There's a lot of features now and tool sets, frameworks to do. So integration broker has been around for a while. It's been leveraged now with things like inbound transaction uploads. So things like Excel uploads from Excel straight in to create transactions, whether it's on the HCM side, financial side, no problem. Excel to CI, fantastic feature. It's been out forever, and I'm going to highlight this whole component interface thing because I think it's still underutilized, and it's fundamental to things like the fluid form and approval. If you're going to build forms, you want to drop that data into a transaction, you're going to go through a component interface. So I really want to highlight that. Of course, you've all still got the outbound SQRs and web services. Application data sets is another one I'm going to highlight that helps you move configuration from one environment to another. Okay, so component interfaces. It's an API built to access, modify, and upload data into PeopleSoft. Most PeopleSoft components already have delivered component interfaces, but it's very easy if you don't have a delivered component interface to build a component and a component interface. Very easy to do that. And it allows you to leverage the entire hierarchy that exists within that component. And then an Excel tool that then allows you to then leverage that component interface and drop data straight in from Excel, straight into the application. By using, you have to log in, it's an authentication model, you log in and make sure that you have access to create a transaction there. But once you do, you get full validation. So it's going to stop the items that are in error. So maybe a couple of your lines don't go in, but all the good lines go in. And it allows the user to actually fix that data and re-upload. And so it really pushes that back to the person who's actually doing that upload. So component interface is fantastic. Again, fundamental to doing a lot of stuff we do with forms and approval using those component interfaces. Application data sets are a newer feature within the last couple of years that allow you to manage the life cycle of your configuration or other data. So this is a fantastic way to move your configuration if you're in a heavy sort of development framework or implementation of new module, et cetera. You can build these application data sets and you can migrate your configuration from one place to the other. The pro here is you're creating a repeatable process that can be re-leveraged. And if, oh, we got to make a change to the configuration, you have sort of a sort of master and then sort of a target of moving your configuration. In the old days, you would just rekey it all in. In fact, sometimes that's still the preferable method. But with application data sets, you can do all that. That's, of course, the pro. The con, of course, it's the upfront setup time. You got to get it right. You got to build that application data set, and then you got to move your data, and you got to deal with any issues. That, of course, can lead to some upfront time to actually build this. But once you've built it, it's then good to go, and it can create a lifecycle management of your configuration, which frankly most customers don't have a good lifecycle manager of their configuration. So again, a great feature that's out there. Okay, custom lookups and references. I want to talk a little bit about related content framework. So the related content framework enables you to link specific pages that are contextually relevant into other areas within the application. Oracle delivers this framework and actually delivers content into a lot of their pages. And there's really two flavors to this: related content, related. I'll show you both of these, and just so you know, while Oracle delivers this, you can enhance it. You can add to it again in a totally delivered way. So here we are at a page in asset management. We're looking at a specific asset. And you can see here there's a little drop down up here for related content. I can look up cost information, and it's going to drop this little window right on top of my page, and it's going to show me cost information related to that asset. Normally, I wouldn't have cost information on the asset. I have more referential information, but by using this related content, I can add cost history. Maybe I wanted to add who bought this asset or something like that, right? Very easy to add that into related content and take you into another area. You don't want it to completely take you away from where you're at. You just want referential information. That's what related content is really great at. The second flavor, this is related actions. This is designed not only to view, but also to take action. And in this case, it creates a secondary tab, a browser window, or a modal, which is what they call a modal or a hovering window over your existing transaction. So here's an example. I'm entering team time, and I can use this little drop down, and it takes me to these related actions. I can take a look at if there's any violations, attendance violations. You can do a summary. I can cancel absences. So it's designed to actually take action. Again, fully delivered from Oracle, but you can then enhance that and modify it yourself. Okay. All right. A couple more to go through here. So analysis and reporting. So none of these things have gone away. Query reports, homegrown analytics still exist, still can be used. However, queries are now the basis for a lot of pivot grids. We're going to show what a pivot grid looks like. And then Kibana Analytics is a newer feature, and it's really starting to explode, and Oracle's spending a lot of time on it. So let me show this. So here we have a little tile on my homepage that's got this nice graphical representation of expense reports. And this can be an operational thing like this. I'm managing expense reports, or it could be sort of an analytic. In this case, it's more of an operational thing, looking at expense reports. Here I can see, kind of an analytic around the top 20 employee spenders. So by clicking on a specific tile, I can come in here, I can look at this, I can take action. As you can see, there's actions to take there. I can move this around, I can change it to a different type of visualization. I can use the features on the left to click and only look at specific items. Maybe I only want to look at specific business purposes here, or I can filter specific dates. So very interactive. But it's designed to take action, and it's designed for specific use cases. Here, I'm clicking on that action, and I can go straight into view an expense report. So pivot grids have been around for a while. They are a bit of a resource hog. and tend to be somewhat slow. And so you got to really deal with your backend data. You got to present only a certain amount of data to pivot grids, otherwise it's going to be pretty slow. What's not slow is this new feature, Kibana. Kibana is fantastic. This is building on the Elastic search stack, so the ELIX stack. If you're familiar with Elasticsearch, Kibana uses those search indexes and builds visualizations around those search indexes. Oracle is not only creating the framework for you to build your own, but also delivering new dashboards for you. In fact, if you look at the trend, I believe most of their dashboard and visualizations will be in Kibana going forward. In the latest financials release, image 37, you'll see a bunch of new dashboards that are coming now on the financial side. Here we're looking at a workforce composition, so on the HCM side, very easy to click on any of these items, change your time frame. It can deal with lots and lots of data, and it works very, very quickly. Here we have Workforce Insight dashboard, again on the HCM side. Here we're looking at a payables, kind of a AP use case on the financial side. And then lastly, here's the latest from the image 37, which just came out last week. And here's the financial insights dashboard that is being delivered. All of this previously would have been built within a pivot grid or maybe a query and offline and maybe an Envision report or whatever. Now all this is just delivered now as part of the Kibana framework. And I'll talk about that later, but we have a full-on presentation webinar on Kibana if you'd like more information. So what's the difference between pivot grids and Kibana? Generally speaking, you can read all these details, but pivot grids are going to be a little bit smaller and contextual to a transactions. You can do things like simplified analytics within it. Kibana handles much larger data sets. It's built for better performance and large volumes of data. All of it is still adheres to PeopleSoft security, so you can rest assured there. And there's just a place for both of these. Okay, coming down the home stretch here. So custom logic. We've got a situation in the past where we needed to update or to modify an application image or make a customization to an SQR. We've got these fantastic new features that I'm really excited about. Event mapping has been around for a long time, although it's been enhanced to in the latest PeopleTools image to really be more functioning, as well as pluggable app engines, which is brand new and really fantastic. So event mapping allows you to isolate your code to function. Let's say every time X happens, I want to do Y. A user enters something, I want something to happen, whether that's populating another field on the page or to kick off something behind the scenes. All of that's done. It's done through the People Code framework in App Designer, but you're isolating that code from the underlying event that's happening, or underlying page or components happening. In HCM, so here's a couple examples of HCM. You could build a button that generates a time report, all done through event mapping. Again, isolating your code versus customizing and delivered object. Or in financials, when data is entered on a page, I want to run a calculation and display that calculation. Very easy to do that with event mapping. Pluggable App Engine, brand new for 8.5.8. And what this is think of this as like a drop zone for the App Engine. If you're familiar with the drop zone that we just talked about, the app engines now have the ability to create these hooks that allow you to have your own code and have that fire within the context of a delivered app engine. And so previously you would just modify that app engine and then you'd have to remodify it every time you want to bring an update. Now you just link in your code into this this plugin, and it makes it very, very easy. Here's a screen where you actually manage this. So yes, you have to create your plugin in App Designer, but once you have it, you just link it in and you tell exactly when you want it to happen. And you have this real rich sort of feature to be able to say exactly what you want to happen, when it's going to happen. And again, by doing this, you're isolating your code, and you can really take your app engine, any app engine that is currently customized, you can decustomize it through this process. And again, something that's delivered in 8.5.8 and we're going to talk a little bit about a customer use case for this. Okay, so let's talk about a couple of customer success stories. The first one is Evergreen Health. So they were pretty far behind. They were on PeopleSoft 9, so Financials 9.0, and a really old tools release, and had a classic interface. We worked with them all last year. We upgraded them to, at that point, 8.5.7, and tools image was actually image 30 on Financials 9.2. We were able to achieve an 80% reduction in customizations by simply rationalizing. So it's the first couple of steps on that framework for analyzing your customizations. By rationalizing the customizations, determining if it was still a requirement, and moving to delivered functionality, that was the most of what we did there. And we were able to reduce 80% of their customizations while still moving to the fluid interface and employee self-service. We implemented PUM and Elasticsearch. We even implemented 2 new modules for them. So you had things that were happening outside, and we were able to say, hey, that thing you're doing outside the application, or this customization you have, you know, that's actually just a feature now in this other module. And so we were able to actually implement a couple new modules for them, and big win for that organization. Second, Citadel. This is one that's a little bit more current, and because this was on 8.5.8, we were able to actually take a look at their customizations. In this case, they had about, grouped about 250 customizations, but that referred to about 2,100 custom objects in App Designer. And by really pushing hard with Pluggable App Engine, event mapping, and then expansion of page and field configurator, we were able to reduce dramatically their list of customizations and get them now on a path to not only get current, but now to stay current. So in summary, there are a bunch of new options, and some of these have been around for a while, but this is a list of the eliminate sort of features that you can do, as well as the isolate. That's the way they're looking at this. You got eliminate, you got isolate. And by doing these, you can really reduce your customizations. Not that customizations are bad, but you can do it in a way that's not going to create as much technical debt as existed before. Really, more than ever before, you really have the ability to configure your application for that tailored experience that's unique to your organization, without that costly customizations or that technical debt that you will have to stair step and not be able to stay current in the future. So that concludes the content today, but I want to just give you some options for continuing with next steps. So continue learning. So obviously, PeopleBooks, if you haven't paid attention, PeopleBooks has been it's continued to be updated. I was happy to see that PeopleBooks was completely in sync with Image 37 when it came out last week. On the financial side, it was totally updated already. PeopleBooks is great, and I know you all will be, to turn on a fire and grab a glass of wine and just read PeopleBooks. It's so fun to do. Seriously, it's actually got a lot of good content, and if you're looking for something specific, it's really got some great features in there. If you are wanting a little bit more of an easier experience to kind of view some of these features, we've got some great webinars that we did earlier this year during the height of the COVID lockdowns. We did some great webinars that you can go out here and just watch them. And we've got things like chatbots, a full deep dive on Kibana, unified navigation, PTF, etc. And so these are all free for you. There's the link, and again, you will get this deck. We'll get the deck out too, so you can click on these links and go straight out to those webinars. If you want to take it further and go straight into some decustomization consultation, we can do that for you, and we're offering a free consult with you, where we can kind of look at your customizations with you, perhaps do some demonstrations, and kind of help you with some roadmap planning. Totally free to you. Contact me, and we can hook you up. If you know you want to focus on a specific feature, I can find somebody who's kind of really an expert in that area, or it can just be more general about looking at your customizations and how you kind of move forward with that. So we're offering those free consults with you guys. If you want to take it a little bit more deeper, we do have recorded trainings. Here's an example of one of our trainings. We've got 4 sessions that cover these topics. So page and field configurator, event mapping drop zones, activity guides, portal technologies, and then fluid forms and approval. These are all out there available to buy. I should say they're not totally out there. You need to contact us to get access to them, but they're available, and I can provide discounts if you're purchasing for your organization, and we can provide discounts versus the normal individual purchase. So that's kind of the way you could kind of take it a little bit further and kind of watch some training. We also have an option of actually just subscribing to our demo environment, where we keep our environment completely up to date. We've already installed 37, so we commit to getting our application updated within a day or two of when the new image comes out for any HCM or financials, et cetera. We will get that updated for you. It'll have these features available for you to try out. You know, it's great. You know, you all can have a demo environment on your own, with whether you're on-prem or hosted on a cloud infrastructure. But not all these things work. They're not configured. And so while you can go learn how to configure them and figure them out yourself, you can always just connect with us. And through working with us, we can actually just show you how this stuff works. I'll point out that when you hook up with our demo services, we actually do one-on-one consulting with you. So as part of this, we'll actually show this to you. We'll do hand holding. We'll do one-on-ones. We'll actually show you how the stuff works, how you can actually take it and build the stuff for yourself. So we offer that as part of this service. And with that, we've got just a few minutes left, and I will open it up to any Q&A that you may have. So Taryn, do you want to step through any of the questions that might be out there?
Yeah, so we did have a few questions that came in, and just a quick reminder, if you do have any more questions, please put those into the question drop-down box. We can go ahead and get to those. So I will go ahead with the first question. So can Page configure set country sections like USA to the section default on? Karen, you might want to take a look at this. Is like the second question that we have.
Yeah. So I see, so Larry, I see that question. Maybe, why don't you connect with me, because I don't totally understand your question. I mean, certainly Page and Field Configurator can default things like a country. If you want more complex logic, then you're going to need to use event mapping for that. But again, you can do that in a way that doesn't touch the underlying page itself. So if you just hook up with me, my email address here is the next slide. In fact, I'll just go to that now. So feel free to just connect with me, and I'll make sure that I answer your question appropriately.
Okay. And the next question that we have is, what is the difference between navigation collection and WorkCenter?
Yeah, it's a great question. A lot of times people get a little bit confused about why would I do one or the other. Think about the WorkCenter as a way to automate a business process from one person or one group to another group. So while I do my action, it'll then drop onto the WorkCenter of another person and showing that you now have transactions to process. A nav collection doesn't do that. It doesn't say you've got specific, there's no search mechanism. It's really just a way to group your navigation. It no longer has to go through that complicated menu where you go to 4 or 5 different areas to get your job done. So nav collection is just a way to bring all that together in a more logical way, as I showed you before, like an HR administration, where everything you need to do HR administration in one set of pages already brought together.
Okay. And the next question, is Kibana part of Tools 858?
Yes, so Kibana is fully delivered. You already own it. If you own PeopleSoft, you own it. It's been delivered the last couple of tools releases. In 857, it was really focused on more system administrative type dashboards, so system performance and that sort of thing. In 858, it's now enhanced to really be more of a functional visualization tool that allows people like in a functional area to get access to these dashboards. I showed you a couple of them, All of those are now delivered as enhanced through 858 and the more recent image.
Okay. And is the application data set the only way to track configurations?
Great question. So typically people track configurations on configuration workbooks and sort of offline. You can query any table and bring that configuration out of that table into Excel or into some kind of offline report. The only way so application data sets really not necessarily designed to track configurations. It's really more to migrate and manage the movement of configurations. So I suppose it could be used also to just sort of be your documentation of your configurations, but really it's more designed to be that lifecycle manager to move configurations from one area to the other. And again, Gwen, if you want to follow up with a specific question to me, I'd be happy to talk to you further about that.
Okay. And the next question is, are navigation collections user-specific, much like the favorites feature?
Oh, great question. No, so navigation collections are more designed for a functional area. You wouldn't add a favorite into a navigation collection personally, but you could do it more corporately. In other words, if all of your HR administrators had a very specific page that you wanted to group to bring in for everybody, very easy to do that, to configure that navigation collection to include that extra page. So, so not personally, but you can very easy to configure it and for everybody to use that.
Okay. And how do you migrate event mapping and page and field configurator changes?
Yeah, another great question. So application data sets is a great way to migrate any kind of configuration through the front end. So when we talk about PIA, PeopleSoft Internet Architecture, so anything you put in there can be captured through application data sets and migrated. Anything that you do, but event mapping, of course, requires app designer objects, right? So app designer objects within app designer are still migrated the same way that you would do them in sort of the old traditional way of doing it. So you can create a project and you can migrate that from one application to the other. So app designer still the same as before. Anything you do through PIA can be captured through application data sets and migrated from one application to another, or one environment to another.
Okay. And I think that is all the questions that we have. I did get a few questions and comments about the recording and everything of the webinar. So this was recorded and it will be on the Quest content library underneath the Learn tab, and everyone will receive an email when that is available for everyone to view. So thanks again, Cameron, for coming and speaking with everyone today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, and I appreciate it. And you see my contact information there. If you have any questions, follow-up questions, if you want to pursue any of the things that I talked about with our trainings, our webinars, some consultations, very happy to talk to you and provide a vision for how we might be able to assist you in your overall decustomization journey. So thank you, everybody, very much, and we'll go ahead and end the presentation today.
Okay, thanks, everybody, and everyone have a great rest of their day.